Good morning everyone, Sarah from Sarah Homfray Embroidery. I've left the studio, as you can see, so I've come down to Oxfordshire, just outside Oxford. I've come to see an exhibition, but I thought I would just show you where I'm staying. Yeah, I'm in a lovely little village called Minster Lovell on the River Windrush, and we're staying in the Old Swan. It's a beautiful hotel on the river, and we arrived in the dark last night and couldn't see it, and I got up this morning for a little walk around before breakfast, and it's beautiful. I'll show you some shots of it. The river is quite high. That'll be all the snow we've had, I think, but really lovely area, and what you'd probably consider a quintessential English village with this little thatched cottages and nice quiet roads and full of cars now. Very beautiful. So I'll come to see an exhibition, which I'll tell you a bit more about in a second. So I am going to go and have some brekkie because I'm starving, and then we're going to head into Witney, which is this little town. Is it a town? Yeah, small town. It's at Oxford. And we're going to Witney Antiques to look at some rather amazing embroidery. Have already seen it. Went yesterday. Really amazing. Going back today. So go for another look. I don't think I'll be able to show you inside. I will ask if I can, but I've got a couple of the catalogues, so I'm definitely going to show you those. Really amazing embroidery in there. We're going to have a little look at those and see what we can see. So off to have my full English breakfast. That'll keep me going for the whole day, hopefully, and I'll see you in Witney. Right, so I am in Witney. It's up there, and this is Witney Antiques behind me. So we're going to go inside and have a look and see what we can see. Founded in 1963, Witney Antiques is a large, carefully curated stock of early English embroidery needlework samplers from the 17th, 18th and early 19th century for sale. But the owner, Rebecca Scott, is very happy for you to just come in, have a look around these beautiful embroideries and chat to her about these incredible pieces that she has on display. So I'm going to show you some other pieces that were in the wonderful exhibition there in a second in the catalogues here, but I came away with rather a lot more books than I'd intended. So these are all publications on previous exhibitions that they have had at Witney Antiques, and they're rather lovely, and they are all available from Witney Antiques, so you can pop to their website. I'll put a link in the description below this video to witneyantiques.com. You can read all about these books, and you can have a little see what's inside these, and you can purchase them directly from Witney Antiques. And if you are in America or Canada or Australia, you can buy the current catalogue for the exhibition that we're going to look at in a second from your respective countries, from suppliers in your respective countries. So I will list those in the description below this video as well. And we've got rather a lot of books, so I think we'll save these ones for another video. So if you'd be interested in seeing what's in these, then do let me know. And while we're talking about books, I just want to thank Gianella very much for sending me this beautiful book. This is some vestments that were on display in Verona in Italy, and Gianella's very kindly sent me a copy of the book. It's got some amazing, incredible embroideries inside. It is in Italian. I don't speak Italian, so I am just going to do a little bit of Google Translate on that, make sure I know what I'm talking about, but that's another one for another video, because we'd really love to show you what's in this book too. So thank you very much, Gianella, for sending that. It was very kind of you. So actually two catalogues for this exhibition. So this first one, Elizabeth Hall and Friends, this was on display first. So it was a cabinet of lots of types of embroidery, lots of different pieces of embroidery from one collection, from one family, and they were all in this beautiful box here. So that was one catalogue, so that's for that. And then this is the second one, which was other pieces of needlework that were displayed around Witney Antiques. And we're going to start with that one, and then we'll come back to this one. I just want to show you a few things inside. So this exhibition was specifically about treasures from the schoolroom, so girls who would learn to do needlework at school. So this wouldn't have been poorer girls who would have done needlework but at home, and it would have been more sewing and more practical items. But this is another level of embroidery. So these girls would have belonged to the gentry and to aristocracy, and they would have gone to boarding school, and embroidery would have been part of their curriculum. So this collection is about those girls and what they did at school and what they learnt as part of their education. So this isn't just a catalogue of what was in the exhibition. There's lots of interesting essays in here about these girls and about the school and about the training they would have had, and the context of these embroideries that these embroideries have come from. So there's lots of interesting reads in here. But what I've done is I've picked out a few things that were really inspired me when I had a look around the exhibition. one thing that struck me was there's so many different materials that were used in these embroideries, and I thought that was really interesting. So I picked a few things that are made out of interesting things, and I got some samples of the materials and some work that I have done using those things as well. So we'll bring those in when it's appropriate. So these are just not in any specific order. They were just things that I really enjoyed in the exhibition. So let's have a look at the first one. So one of the first things that struck me was this beautiful sampler on the wall. So this is Anne Fisher. It's from 1693, and I just like one specific bit of it especially, and it's this little rose that's in the middle. So there's lots of different techniques going on here. We've got some white work down the bottom. So this really was a sampler. It was for them to learn all of these techniques, and they learnt how to read and write at the same time. They put the alphabets in. But this motif here just really struck me. It was very beautiful because it's actually done in needle lace. There's a bigger version of it in here, so I'm just going to bring this one in. This is I Write the Needle's Praise. And what was really interesting about this is all done on a counted fabric, so an even weave fabric, the same number of threads, left to right is up, down, warp and weft. And the rose in this is 3-dimensional. So it's actually done with needle lace. We have looked at needle lace, we've got videos on that. So this rose was actually 3-dimensional. The petals stuck out from the sampler, and it was the only point of the whole sampler where something did stand out, and it really just, my eye really caught this rose. It was beautiful. And these pieces were done by the Quakers, so a lot of Quaker schools, and you can tell that because the patterns repeat throughout the sampler. So you can look at all the different samples and see if it's got this pattern on it. You know it's a particular school in London, and the Quaker Society who did these same motifs again and again. So this rose appears in quite a few other samplers. Here's another one here. So sort of a rose and a stem, and there's things coming off the stem, and there's usually acorns and flowers on it as well. And this is a motif that comes up again and again. Here's another one here if I just turn the page from a different sampler. And so I really loved this rose sampler that came out, and I loved the fact that it was needle lace. This one specifically had this needle lace in it, and the rose stood out. So I thought that was really interesting and really beautiful, and to see these repeat patterns come in again and again. So I actually went to see this exhibition twice. I went 2 days running because there was so much to see. I thought I really need to go back and look again. And it wasn't till the second visit where I noticed this little book. Now this is tiny. It's big on the page. It's just a few centimetres tall. It was really small, this book, made in about 1660. And it was actually a book that was written in. So it was made in 1660, but it wasn't written in until the 18th century. So it was beautifully made, and it was probably a bit precious, and people thought, oh, I can't write in it. And it was actually written in later. And it was started in one end. It's got some sayings and verses in it. And you can read those there if you have this catalogue. But what's really interesting is in the back, if you go to the back and turn it over, there's a list of purchases of things that were made. And they're really quite mundane things. So there's a watch, some scissors, children. One can assume, buy children. One can assume this is for items for the children for their care. Gloves, cakes, toys, fruit, shoes, buckets, silk, cakes, toothbrush, nutmeg, and the list goes on and on. So really quite practical things in the back, and nice sayings and verses in the front. So they obviously had an idea that you start this book off and you'd write all these beautiful things in, and then actually you needed a practical book to write everyday things down in, and they turned it over and they used it in the back. So I thought that was a really interesting use for this. I've often had these beautiful sketchbooks and I don't put anything in them because they're too nice, and I think that might be what's happened here. But it's a lovely book. It's made with velvet, so the green is velvet, and it's got all this lovely gold work on it. So you can see some couch threads down the middle here. Here's some pearls that are cut up and you sew them down like beads. We've got videos on that. And this beautiful scroll design, and this gold would have just shimmered and shone. It would have been really, really beautiful. And it's also decorated on the back and down the spine as well. So an awful amount of work's gone into this tiny little book, but then somebody's just used it to write down their everyday accounts in, which I think is fabulous. So that really, when I did see it the second time, that really caught my eye. I thought that was really beautiful. Okay, so the egg caused a lot of interest from people who went to see this because it's very unique, and Rebecca, who owns Witney Antiques, says she doesn't think that she has seen anything like this anywhere else at all, never seen another egg. So embroidered eggs in themselves are very rare, and to have one this old is amazing that it survived this long. So thought to be a chicken egg, the insides have been blown out. You make a little hole in the top and you blow the contents of the egg out so the shell is hollow, and you just stitch on this hollow shell. So you make these little holes in it, you can see the ends of the threads, and then you stitch through it. Now this is quite an art. I've had a go. I'm going to show you my meagre efforts and be really careful with these. So yeah, not very refined compared to this egg here, but you get the principle. So you make the holes, you can drill the holes in it, and then you just stitch through the holes. Now what you do is you have to have holes on the other side. That's what that little motif is for, because you take a very long needle through to the back hole, you come back in the same hole, and you come out of the next hole. So your thread ends up going from one hole to the other, but the only way you can get it through there is to go through to the egg and back to the front. So it's a little bit sort of scientific about how you actually do it. So you do need holes all the way round to do it, and I've just done some quite crude stitching on this just to try the sort of principle of it, but it is quite delicate. You can see it has cracked a little bit there, so if you have a tight tension, you pull your thread really tight, you'll crack your egg. So you have to be nice and calm to do it. So that's the sort of principle of it. And then I had this one that I painted, and I did a little bit of gold work on. I don't know what possessed me, to be honest, but wow, I'll do some gold work on an egg today. So same idea, got the holes drilled. So you drill the holes first, so you need to know what your design is, and then I took the thread back and forth and threaded the gold on to do this little bit of gold cut work. There's some spangles on there as well, so come through the hole, put the spangle on, put a bead on, go back down the spangle, out the other side, back in to the next hole. So you have to sort of work your way around, and I can't remember how I finished it because at some point you end up with no holes, so I think you have to come up and down the same hole. But it was really interesting to try. Maybe I'll try it again now I've seen this one, because it is possible to do it. And it's really unusual, and like I say, lots of really strange, interesting materials in there, and eggs is definitely quite high on the list. And this one has actually been stitched with a chenille thread. Now we've been looking at chenille recently. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next catalogue, because there's a few pieces in there with it on. So this has been stitched with the chenille thread, and it's quite complex. It's got whole flowers and whole leaves, and the whole egg is covered in it because you need to have the holes the other side in order to be able to work it. So that it has survived this long is absolutely incredible, really. I wouldn't want to be the custodian of it, that's for sure. So really unusual, that one. Definitely worth showing you the embroidered egg. So I couldn't not show you this piece. This was just a standout piece for me, I think. So the Judgment of Solomon embroidered panel 1673, and this just had everything going on it. This panel, absolutely incredible. So a piece of stump work, so 3-dimensional embroidery. We have a video if you want to know about stump work and what that is. Lots, as I said, lots going on here. So let's have a little look at the figures. So this is Solomon here in the middle, and what's really interesting about him is that he isn't sewn flat onto the surface. It's actually a complete 3-dimensional figure. He is like a doll. He has been placed into the scene. So if you took him off, you can turn him around and he's a whole thing, which is absolutely mind-blowing, really, because I've had a go at this. I'm going to bring William in here at this point. This is my little version of stump work figure. So this is William the Conqueror, and it's flat, so it's padded. He's very dimensional. He comes off the surface, but he is completely sewn down all the way around to the surface. There is no back to him, and he was about the same size that this one was, so he's probably about half the size that the actual one was. But this actual one is completely 3-dimensional all the way around, and there was a suggestion, Rebecca thinks, that maybe you bought this part separately. The girls would stitch the rest of the panel and somebody else would make this figure, and you could kind of buy that element of it and you could stitch him in, which I thought was a really interesting idea. So he's absolutely amazing, and there's, you know, not one but 2 more figures to the side here. She's got a little beaded jug in her hand. Here is the baby that they're fighting over. This little chap here, he's a sort of valet to Solomon. He's got some weighing scales, the scales of justice in his hand, and just all sorts of fascinating stuff. You could just look at this forever. Here's some more of these roses, 3-dimensional roses. We've got some grapes going on. And look at these wonderful acorns and oak leaves in the background. I looked at these really hard when I was there. I spent quite a long time looking at these. Some of them are made of beads, some of them are needle lace. All of the leaves are three-dimensional, and it's all just, you know, completely freestanding piece of embroidery. There's little beads, pearls on it as well. And I think one of the things that really drew my eye was how small everything was. Everything was tiny. The pearls were tiny, minute, and the threads are fine, and the fabrics are really fine count, and the stitches are really tight. Everything was super small, and I just thought, oh, how did they see to do this without all the aids that we have today to stitch with? So this panel was absolutely stunning. Even the little building, they would have glass, some glass pieces down here in the fountain and in the building windows, and they've actually put glass in there, which would have been really unusual in those days to have those materials. And here to represent the water in the fountain, and some more little sort of gems here for the water droplets. This was absolutely stunning, this piece. It's sort of fun, and it's serious, and it's extremely beautifully made all at the same time. It's just everything going on in here. So really incredible panel, absolute standout of the exhibition. This one also caught my eye because this is pretty much all metal work, so all gold work embroidery, but the colours were interesting. Not quite come out in the book as they were in real life. They're a little bit more blue in real life, but the shading was absolutely gorgeous. There was a blue at the end, and they went down into silver here. So this is all done with metal pearls, like these ones that we have here. Of course, they were half the size of the ones that we have because everything was tiny. But they shaded through these colours, so they had blue and went down into the silver as it got to the end, and these are all shaded as well. You can see some of the blue in the bars down here, and I just love the shading. I thought most things from those times were sort of gold or silver. I think it's a bit more unusual to see the colours in it, and this is 1650 pearl work panel. So with these beautiful designs on it, lots of different kinds of metals as well, and different couching techniques as well, and the back is just covered in lots of little spangles, which is the goldwork version of a sequin. So this would have really shone and looked absolutely spectacular. Imagine seeing it in candlelight with all of this metal work glowing beautifully in the candlelight. This really fun little bug, caterpillar, I don't know what it is really, little snails as well. I love the creatures on these things, it really brings something to life. So I thought that one was really special. Okay, so this one will either make you pull a face or you'll be really interested in it because it's got another unusual material here. So this one is stitched with hair, so real human hair in this, which will either make you go, oh, that's horrible, or you might go, oh, wow, that's really interesting. I'm not sure about hair, to be honest, but these are fascinating. So things that they date from about 1660, and closer inspection of them has revealed that there are different colours of hair in there and different thicknesses, so possibly collected from different people. Don't know, but that's really fascinating because you can just see some of the sort of shading in these figures, and it was being done on a net background, so it's sort of embroidered on a net. Just having a little close look at that. The white of the faces is not hair, that would be a different, probably a silk thread, and it's not really known why they were done. Why would you do these two panels? And this may be just to show off this skill that you could do it, do something with hair. And I guess, you know, you're not going to run out of thread. If you need a bit more hair, you can just go and pluck a bit off somebody. So worth having a look at that. I don't know how you feel about hair, but another really interesting material that you could stitch with. I wanted to show you this one, not particularly because I like the design very much, but there were a few pieces in there that worked in tent stitch. So if you're keen on needlepoint, you'll be very familiar with this sort of stitch. But I want to show you this one because there's a picture of the front and the back here. It's quite geometric. These hills are like stripy hills. But look at the colour on the back and this green and how vibrant these colours are. It's not faded too much, but the red has faded probably the most. Where's that? Over here. The flowers, trying to work out what's where now. Yes, so over here in their little houses. So the colours have faded a bit, not massively, but if you can just imagine how vibrant they are. We're all looking at these pieces that are 300, 400 years old as they are now. They're amazing, but see them in their full colour would have just been astonishing, I think. And I thought that was great to be able to look at the back of something is always really interesting. It tells you so much more about the piece and what's happened to it and how it was made and how well it was worked as well. And I've just got a little sample of the fabric because it blew my mind how small these tent stitches were, and I couldn't really see them. There were magnifying glasses in the exhibition. You could peer a bit closer and I could just about see the individual stitches. So this linen, which is what they would have worked on, is a 36 count, so it's 36 threads to the inch. And if I just put my forefinger next to it, hopefully you can see the scale of those. And I think these pieces would have been smaller than that, and they would have done a tent stitch over every thread. They're absolutely minute. And then when you see how big these panels are, you know, this sort of size, that they've all been done in tent stitch on a fabric that size, blows my mind, to be honest. So I just really appreciated these pieces. For somebody who does stitching, really appreciated how they were actually stitched and that they were able to do it at all. Okay, let's go and have a look in the other book and a few pieces in there, because I've got some in there that are relevant to things that we've been looking at recently. So this collection all came out of this box. So this has come from one family. Somebody made the box, and the things in it they think were made by maybe the next generation, and it all belonged in this incredible box. And I'm just going to show you a little picture of the box. So this is the outside. So these panels are individual panels, and they've actually been wrapped in a silk thread, and they're wrapped one way and wrapped the other, and then they're woven at the same time, and you get these really geometric patterns appearing on it. Never really seen anything quite like that. There were a few of these boxes in the exhibition with this technique on, but I thought that was really fascinating. I thought, when I initially saw it, I thought, oh, it's not so beautiful as the embroidered caskets, but the technique of wrapping this thread and weaving at the same time is really interesting. And then all of these pieces came out of this box. It's kind of a little incredible secret collection of embroideries, if you like. Wish I could put all mine in a beautiful box. They're all in a bit of a rubbish IKEA unit, but anyway, this one caught my eye, something a little bit different. So this is actually a needle book to put your needles in, silk background, but it's this that was really interesting. So this is what's called a plate ribbon. Got a little bit here. So this is like a ribbon, normal ribbon, but it's made out of a metal, and you can see it, hopefully you can see it there. It's about the same size actually, so this is 1 millimetre wide, this one. They've actually stitched these long stitches in it, so you can see the flower shapes, and this would have really shone when you move it, and really unusual to see the metal stitch like this. Now we have been looking recently at a piece of embroidery that I bought, 17th century, 18th century, 1700s piece of chenille and metalwork embroidery. If you haven't seen that, I'll put a link up here. This will stay up to the end of the video, so do check that one out when you finished watching this one. All about this beautiful piece that I found, and it's got some of this metalwork in it. So we've been looking at this recently and how it's done. So to see this with this metal on it was really interesting. I've just got a little bit here that I've stitched with as well, just to show how they might have done this. And you can put it in a needle, and you can actually stitch with it. Really difficult. It takes a bit of practice to do it. And you can, I've stitched little flowers with it because I was trying the technique to see how to do it. But they would have just stitched long pieces, so they would have gone in here and all the way down, so it's one stitch. So it's quite a delicate thing, but just the shine on it and this really, again, interesting material to use really caught my eye. So I thought that one was definitely worth showing you. So along the same theme of that piece that I have just mentioned, that also had chenille embroidery thread in it. So I was interested to see this piece because this also has some chenille thread in it. So this is a teardrop purse dating from approximately 1650, and it's tiny. It's only 6 by 8.5 centimetres. Fit in the palm of my hand, so it's really small, but it's got lots of interesting materials on it, and it's different on both sides. So it's got more of a counted technique on this side, a counted pattern on this side, and then this side has the chenille embroidery. It's also got some sort of shading here in silk threads, so these leaves are shaded, and this rose is worked in brown and pink chenille thread. So it was really interesting to see it worked in a different piece to the piece that I have had it, that I have got, that I've been showing you. And it's got these metals in the middle, some metal pearls here as well. And they also made the tassels and the cords as well. So it's sort of a learning how to make lots of different elements and make this 3-dimensional purse. But just lovely to see these materials and to see the chenille thread. I'll just show you a little bit of the chenille thread. This is ours, different colour. So just really furry, beautiful furry thread, and they would have stitched, I don't know without seeing it whether they stitched through the fabric or they stitched it down on top of the fabric, but it just makes this wonderful texture. And with the metals and the silk, you've got all these wonderful textures going on, and all of these different techniques as well. And I just wanted to finish off with this beautiful map. There are loads of map samplers around. If you search samplers, you will see these pop up quite a lot, and there was lots of these in Witney Antiques as well. And this has been outlined with chenille. So these are all the counties, and I am right on the boundary here, right there where I'm making this video. And all the counties are stitched around with this chenille thread. I don't know why they used chenille on maps. There seems to be a lot of that combination of the maps with the chenille outline, so I'm not sure why particularly, but makes these really beautiful textures, and these colours are lovely. So a really interesting use of this chenille thread that we've been looking at. Just really interesting to see it used in these different contexts and for these different pieces of embroidery. And I love these maps. They're just wonderful to see how they stitch these and how you can reference it to where you are, and the materials that we're using today. So I hope you've enjoyed that little look into this amazing exhibition. A really wonderful resource if you're an embroiderer and you're in Oxfordshire. Do go and have a look at Witney Antiques. Don't forget to check their website out for these catalogues and have a little look and see if there's something that inspires you there. There is another exhibition coming in October and November of next year as well. That one is going to be on charity samplers and samplers of the poor. So that one will be really fascinating. Do look out for that. It will be on their website as well when that one comes up. So if you've been interested in this video and you'd like to know more about samplers, do check out my introduction to samplers video up here. And if you check out this one down here, that's how you can use sampling to help you in your embroidery, how to do it and why you should be doing it. Do go and check that one out. Give this video a thumbs up if you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.